You want a war? You're gonna get one.
Now get the guns, the drugs from my generation. I'll take the fall, the saints, the confirmation. And it's a sex, the gods, the fakes, the fraud, the messing with me. Come on, come on, come on. Let's get it out. Move to the music, play that fucking music. Live through my music, yeah.
Welcome back to Reliving the War and welcome to the 21st of September 1998. Tonight, Raw's War comes from Sacramento, California, while Nitro's live from Boston, Mass. We've got Breakdown in your house later in the week, so remember to come over to the channel on Sunday to see what happens. And we're also fast approaching Halloween Havoc 1998, where the Warrior takes on Hollywood Hogan as confirmed last week, and DDP gets a world title shot against Bill Goldberg. This week's jam-up guy is Professor Cliff Starkey. He may be an associate professor of English, but he's also a professor of Saturday Night Fever. Here he is at AEW Dynamite in Baltimore. Thanks very much for supporting the channel, Professor. Your hard work doesn't go unnoticed. Let's get stuck in and see what went down on Raw and Nitro this week. This is Reliving the War, episode 152. Nitro begins and we see Scott Hall arriving to the building completely wasted. He wants WCW's top heel Doug Dillinger to go outside and find out who vandalized his car. Double D says Scott needs a coffee and Hall says he's got enough bosses and Doug can't tell him what to do. And when Doug wants to know what car it is, Scott says it's easy to find, it's the one that got wrecked. Perfectly reasonable response here from the bad guy. The commentators talk about the upcoming DDP vs Goldberg title match at Halloween Havoc, but they're interrupted with the sweet smell of Warrior's Mean Green. Smoke fills up the ring, and there he is. Booty Man's been stoned to the bone for a week solid, and he's already face down, licking the ring mat while giggling like a schoolgirl. The NWO come down to talk sense in the Brother Brudeye, but he gets covered in Hash Bandicoot once again, and he's gone. I love how this tragedy means nothing to Buff and Scott Steiner. These boys think it's more important to pose to the fans and pose to the cameras. Warrior's up in the rafters with the Disciple and he says Hogan's been running to hide while Warrior's been running to reappear. Stevie Ray's like, I have no idea what this lunatic's talking about. Hogan wants a fight tonight, but Warrior wants to take away everything that's valuable to Hollywood, beginning with old Ed Leslie right here. Warrior says the OWN revolution broadens its scope tonight while the plot of Halloween Havoc thickens. Oh, it's getting thick alright. Fit Finlay then took on Barry Darsow, a match sure to excite viewers all around the world. Mr. Darsow thought a chinlock could win people over, but his technique wasn't very sound. Fit breaks free, Repo Man takes a tombstone, Finlay wins on Nitro. Tony Schiavone announces tonight's feature match just before the next competitors make their way to the ring. It's Scott Hall and Stevie Ray versus Lex Luger and Kevin Nash. We've got Wrath taking on Nick Dinsmore next, and Dinsmore does get a lot of praise these days due to his great in-ring work, but let's be honest, nobody in 1998 watching Nitro cared about him. There will be one or two of you out there saying, I always knew he was great, and to that I say, good for you. Wrath wrecks the future Eugene as expected, and we don't get to see any of that great ring work from Dinsmore. The meltdown wins it for Wrath, and my main concern here is that Wrath just doesn't move anywhere on the cards. He's become an R1 warrior on WCW Nitro, which is a bit concerning in regards to his future outlook. More hot wrestling action follows with Rick Fuller versus Rick Steiner, the Battle of the Ricks. Rick Fuller's yet to win a match on Nitro, and guess what? He doesn't win this one either. The dog-faced gremlin beat Mr. Fuller in under a minute with a Steiner Bulldog. After the match, Rick says he's 9,000-0 against his brother, seeing as he's been beating Scott up since he was a little kid. And at Halloween Havoc, it's going to be 9,001-0. That weird laugh track played in the arena again after the promo, so someone's clearly trolling Rick. I wonder who it could be. Hogan and the NWO come down again to call out Warrior, and Warrior shows up on the entranceway. Warrior says, "Follow me, Hogan, this is the way." So Hogan and the boys chase Warrior back through the curtain, and they end up back in Hogan's dressing room. There's an OWN sign on the wall, and it looks like Brutus set it on fire while trying to toke up. Hogan investigates the restroom, and there he is. Too much donkey bong country has left old Ed Leslie throwing his guts up in the toilet. And just when Hogan goes to help his friend, The booty man says, "Psych, motherfucker," and he disappears in another cloud of Warrior's stinky blue cheese. Hulk Hogan just doesn't know how to help his brother out. The disciple is sacrificing everything for the devil's lettuce. Next we had Raven and Kanyon versus Villanos 4 and Villanos 5. Raven says before the match that he gave the flock everything and he was repaid by everyone leaving him but Kanyon. For that, someone has to pay, and so Raven wants to take it out on the Villanos. Unfortunately, this one has a really bad botch that sees Villano 4 getting dropped after a double team powerbomb and neckbreaker. This would put Villano 4 out for around 2 years, and he initially thought he'd never wrestle again following this move. Look at Raven though. Raven throws everything about his character right out the window so he can tend to Villano, and he doesn't leave his side until help arrives. Raven didn't care about distracting the audience or playing up for the cameras, he just wanted to make sure the guy was okay. Doctors arrive, Raven and Kanyon get out of the ring, and there's an awkward cut to the commentators where they're clearly getting info sent into their headsets. The crowd silent is naturally the worst is feared, and it's all eerily similar to the Buff Bagwell injury on Thunder earlier in the year. Thankfully, Villano's able to sit up on his own and the crowd applauds, but he needs help to the back before getting rushed to hospital. It's always grim to see things like this, but credit to Raven for showing that someone's well-being is more important than the show itself. Raw kicks off with a Vince McMahon announcement this week, while on Nitro, Alex Wright takes on Diamond Dallas Page. The Rock's music plays at the beginning of Raw. Rock joins Ken Shamrock, Mankind, and Vince McMahon in the ring for a special announcement. McMahon's put The Undertaker and Kane on the entranceway to keep an eye out for Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Vince reminds everyone that he's guaranteed that Austin's going to lose the title at Breakdown, and that's why he's assembled these WWF superstars in the ring. Before making the announcement, McMahon says Austin can find himself a tag team partner tonight to take on Kane and The Undertaker, and Vince then says he's brought these men to the ring because he doesn't want Rock, Mankind, nor Shamrock to team up with Stone Cold tonight. McMahon wants to grant these guys an opportunity of a lifetime instead. Vince says these three men should share the same goal, and that's to become WWF champion, and McMahon also says he'd be proud to call any of these men the champion of his company. So these guys want to think about themselves, don't worry about Stone Cold. Rock vs Shamrock vs Mankind will take place tonight, and the winner gets a title shot next week on Raw against the WWF champion. With an opportunity like this, you can't imagine any of the guys teaming up with Austin tonight, so let's see what happens a little later on.
Oh, you want to see some big bratwurst, do you? Well, not this week, you dirty little bastard.
Alex Wright is angry tonight, guys. So angry that he doesn't want to dance, so you know things are pretty serious. Even his partner in crime, Disco Inferno, has his game face on as he tries his best to drop weight in order to compete for the Cruiserweight title tonight on Nitro. And Alex is out here complaining about stupid Americans who can only speak one language. He's sick of the people, he's sick of America, and he's sick of WCW. There's one American wrestler though that really disgusts Alex, the People's Champion DDP. DDP says he'll never turn down a fight, so Alex wants a match with Page right now. And if Alex beats Dallas, then Alex should go on to Halloween Havoc for a shot at the world belt. God, that would have been amazing. DDP comes out and Alex goes to work right away, laying in the boots and whipping Dallas with his sexy leather jacket. The commentators are impressed as Alex stays on Dallas, and we see a picture-perfect dropkick from Das Wunderkind. Alex keeps the pressure on with a missile dropkick. This is it, our boy's going to Halloween Havoc. He counters a back suplex and... Diamond Cutter. Well, it was a nice dream while it lasted. Page secures his spot in the Halloween Havoc main event, and Alex goes back to reconsider his next career steps. DDP stays in the ring for an interview next on Nitro. On Raw, it's Billy Gunn versus Jeff Jarrett. B.A. Billy Gunn's doing the Road Dogg's job of talking into the mic during the entrance. He takes it one step further by also cutting the Road Dogg's famous Ladies and Gentlemen promo.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, D-Generation X proudly brings to you the WWF Tag Team Champions of the World, the Road Dogg Jesse James, the Badass Billy Gunn, the New Age Outlaws!
If there's ever a situation where you need me, please just call me, because I'll be there.
Gunn gets the better of Jarrett with a clothesline, but Jeff fires back with 2 consecutive drop kicks. B.A. Billy Gunn shows off his strength with a military press slam, and in the corner, Billy tells Double J to suck it after punching him a few times in the face. Jarrett drops Gunn on the top rope before taking to the skies for a flying crossbody. Gunn then takes a DDT from Jeff, and when Billy's able to fight back, he ends up missing a running crossbody. Everything's pretty standard, but the fans love every moment of the match. Pretty much anything in this era would get reactions, even if it's the most basic wrestling you could imagine. On the outside, Gunn gets dropped on the barrier, and he gets his head slammed on the ring steps. He comes back by throwing Jeff into the ring post. Still, Gunn's unable to capitalize, and Double J goes straight back in the driver's seat when the match resumes in the ring. Jeff lands a middle rope fist drop, and he follows this up with a Russian leg sweep. Gunn gets another chance when he sets Jarrett up for a pile driver, but Jeff counters it, and both men are now on the mat. When they eventually get up, Billy delivers a famouser. We then see a pretty awkward referee bump when Billy misses a stinger splash. Jeff thinks this is the perfect chance to use his guitar, so he brings it into the ring, but Tim White wakes up and he takes the guitar away. Billy then wins the match with a neck breaker? Okay then. And that's the first Raw match in the books. I should also point out that Jim Cornette and Shane McMahon are calling the action this week. That's quite the tag team right there. On Nitro, DDP draws some comparisons between himself and Bill Goldberg. He says everyone wants to be champion from a young age, and if you look at WCW's current champ, you've got someone who rose to the very top faster than anyone before him. He's a natural. DDP, on the other hand, had to bust his chops to get where he is, and it took him years. Goldberg's undefeated while DDP's took his fair share of losses, but Page turned every negative into a positive, and he improved because of it. The one thing both men have is heart, and DDP's bringing all his heart to Halloween Havoc, so he expects Goldberg to do the same.
Oh yeah, and Goldberg, don't even blink for a second, or you may feel the
Steve Austin cuts a promo next on Raw, plus the Oddities are scheduled to take on the Headbangers. On Nitro, it's Ernest Miller versus Lenny Lane. Stone Cold guesses that things are supposed to be looking pretty bad right now for the Rattlesnake, with The Undertaker and Kane forming this alliance with Vince McMahon. Austin remembers that Undertaker said this was business and nothing personal, but Stone Cold thinks otherwise. If you try to take the WWF title away from Austin, then it's automatically made personal. In regards to the stipulation of Breakdown, where Undertaker and Kane can't beat each other, Stone Cold thinks it's the biggest load of crap. And as for tonight, Austin knows no one's going to help him out because everyone's afraid of Vince McMahon. So Austin's going to come to the ring all alone. He'll fight 2 men because it doesn't matter how big you are, you'll never finish Stone Cold off. At Breakdown, fans shouldn't expect to see Austin 316, they should expect to see Austin 666. The next matchup, the Oddities versus the Headbangers, doesn't get underway. The Headbangers dance with Kurgan and company, and it looks like it's all friendly. But then Mosh and Thrasher launch an attack on their unsuspecting opponents, and the referee decides that the match isn't going to happen. So it looks like the Headbangers have turned heel, and I'm not even joking. The most heat they got here was when they ripped up Golga's Cartman plushie. Ernest Miller calls Lenny Lane Larry before their match, and he says by law he must inform Lane that he's a 3-time World Karate Champion. He could rip Larry apart in 5 seconds, so the cat gives Lenny 5 seconds to leave the ring and live to fight another day. Mr. Lane's an absolute slacker, so he's like, yeah, okay. I mean, it's a smart move. Lenny's a job guy, so why not just leave Ernie standing there looking like an idiot? But Miller catches on to this and he brings Lenny back into the ring. The cat wants to shake Lenny's hand because he's such a smart little enhancement talent. And of course, that was a mistake. Lenny tries a schoolboy pin when Ernie continues to put himself over on the mic. The cat kicks out and Lenny's going to pay for that dearly. It would have been nice to see Lane get his comeuppance, but here comes Scott Hall walking down to the ring, unscheduled and unannounced. The cat applies a sleeper as Hall demands that these two get out of the ring so we can start the main event. And in the end, it's Dusty Rhodes who has to come down and take Scott away. The bad guy falls on his ass when pulled off the apron. Dusty warns Scott that he's throwing his life and career away, and Scott doesn't seem all that bothered. Hall says every party has its pooper as the two head back up the ramp, and back in the ring, Miller lands his front roundhouse kick to defeat Lenny Lane. Backstage, Disco weighs in, and he did it. He got under 225 pounds, so Disco faces Kidman tonight for the Cruiserweight belt. Jacqui vs Sable takes place on Raw. Over on Nitro, it's Saturn vs Jerry Lynn with an F. So, the WWF are going to crown a new women's champion in this match. Cornette mentions Alundra Blaze being the last champion and Commissioner Slaughter being responsible for bringing the title back. So, it's quite an important match here on WWF Raw. That lady we saw last week's in the crowd again, cheering for Sable. Sable lands a few kicks at the opening bell, but thanks to a distraction from Mark Mero, Jacqui's able to quickly return the favour. The more experienced Jacqui kicks Sable while she's down, but she's somehow able to kick out after receiving a DDT. Sable then gets choked at the ropes by both Jacqui and Marvelous Mark, but she moves out of the way when Jacqui goes for the leapfrog teabag. Jacqui sells the damage to her lady parts, and Sable runs in with a takedown, followed by a few punches and a choke. Hey, Sable was definitely over, but no one will ever call her a top tier wrestler. Jacqui takes a few clotheslines before getting sent out of the ring. Marvelous Mark jumps on the apron and Sable takes him out too. But when Sable goes for a suplex to bring Jacqui back inside the ropes, Mero holds on to Sable's leg and Jacqui's able to score the pinfall victory. So Jacqui is the new WWF Women's Champion. Mero says he and Jacqui are going to Disney World after the victory, and no, there is no belt here for Jacqueline to put around her waist. I know, it's so stupid. You don't bring a championship back without having a championship belt at the ready. On Nitro, I'm still confused how Jerry Lynn with an F gets matches on Monday nights. I did a Patreon watch-along a few weeks back where he won a match against Chris Adams on WCW Saturday Night, so I don't know. Maybe he had some photos of Eric Bischoff that Eazy-E didn't want leaked to the press or something. Seriously, I have no idea. Saturn catches Flynn's kick and he applies an STF. Jerry also goes down after a Luthez press before taking a super kick, and Saturn decides he's going to put this Kung Fu Klutz through a table because that's exactly what he deserves. Unfortunately, Flynn Balor's able to pull off a dive over the top rope, and back in the ring, Saturn takes an inside-out bump following a clothesline. Flynn then sweeps Perry and he mounts afterwards for a few strikes, and Perry has to fight out of a cross arm breaker so he can get up and hit Jerry with an exploder suplex. It goes to the outside again and Jerry tries to put Saturn through the table, completely failing in his mission and finding himself on the top of the table. It's funny how these things work out, right? Perry performs a dive from the top turnbuckle and Flynn gets put through the wood, and Saturn ends it with a Death Valley driver. It was a solid enough match, and Flynn really isn't a terrible or bad wrestler. He just has the charisma of vanilla ice cream without the vanilla, and that's being generous. Undertaker and Kane take on Steve Austin and a mystery partner next on Raw. On Nitro, Scott Steiner and Buff Bagwell cut a promo. Undertaker and Kane make their way down to the ring. Steve Austin comes down and he's ready to fight both these guys in a 2-on-1 match, but then DX's music plays in the arena. Is it Triple H? No. X-Pac? No. Road Dogg? Apparently he's dealing with a minor injury, so no. It's Billy Gunn, the member of DX who already wrestled on this show. Vince McMahon's not happy backstage, and honestly, neither am I. Billy Gunn's awesome, but why not a member of DX who hadn't already wrestled? Why not anyone who hadn't already wrestled? Jim Cornette tries to make sense of it as Undertaker hits Austin with his jumping clothesline, and Jim says maybe DX drew straws backstage and Billy lost. Suppose it's as good an explanation as any. Austin delivers the Luthez press on Undertaker before tagging in BA Billy Gunn, and even though Billy doesn't look so good when the Undertaker throws him into the corner, he's able to come back with a famouser and the crowd pops. Gunn and Austin show some good teamwork by making quick tags, but this is the Undertaker we're talking about here. The dead man floors Austin with a clothesline before tagging in his little brother, and the arena rumbles and shakes as the crowd chant for Stone Cold. Austin puts Kane on the mat with a clothesline, in comes Mr. Ass again, and Billy's going to stay in here and build for the hot tag. He's able to fight out of a chokeslam attempt, but he gets distracted by Taker, and then the systematic beatdown begins. We're going to see how bad Billy's ass really is. The brothers tag in and out while taking turns at beating up poor Billy. Any attempts at fighting back don't work, and the brothers even rely on classic heel tactics to keep the referee distracted. Stone Cold still comes in to save his partner, but this leads to Kane and Taker taking advantage when Earl sends Austin back to his corner. Kane lands his top rope clothesline, and just when you think Billy's out, he gets up and he dashes into his opponent, and we see a double clothesline. And again, the arena rumbles. Just look at this. Monday Night Wars, ladies and gents. Billy tags in Stone Cold, and here we go. Right hands to Kane, a right hand to Undertaker. Taker avoids a stunner, but the Big Red Machine isn't so lucky. Undertaker breaks up the cover and all four men are now in the ring, and just as Kane and Austin go to the outside, the referee takes a bump. Undertaker then tombstones Billy. He then covers Billy for the pinfall win, but keep in mind that Mr. Ass was not the legal man here, it was Stone Cold. Stone Cold grabs a chair and he takes out the Brothers of Destruction just because he can, and the Rattlesnake flips off his breakdown opponents as he heads back up the ramp. The guy responsible for blurring the finger didn't do a very good job. Not a bad tag match, but my opinion doesn't matter here. The crowd absolutely loved it and the atmosphere in the arena looked incredible. On Nitro, Buff and Scott Steiner come to the ring and Scott says there's no one in professional sports that looks like Big Papa Pump. Scott Steiner's a winner, everyone knows it, Rick Steiner knows it, and Scott takes a few jabs at the local sports teams before saying Boston sucks. Scott then says Hollywood Hogan sent out his two best guys to find out what's going on with Bret Hart. One week he's wearing a Hogan shirt, the next week he's all buddy-buddy with Sting. So Bret needs to clear everything up because, as we all know, when you're NWO, you're NWO for life, and Bret should really remember that. The Hitman comes to the ring and he doesn't get a chance to speak. He pushes Bagwell and this leads to Scott and Buff pushing back. Bret then gets attacked as Buff and Scott target the Hitman's injured knee, and this leads to Sting running down to make the save for the Hitman, maybe returning the favour from last week. What's next for Bret in the US title? I don't know, but if he doesn't defend it soon, he's going to have to forfeit, I'd imagine. Rick Steiner then shows up on the entranceway to attack Bagwell and Scott. There's a great pop when Rick gets his hands on Scotty, but the beatdown short-lived as Scott runs away as fast as he can.
Disco fever, yeah, 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 yeah.
Disco Inferno vs Kidman on Nitro. On Raw we have two matches, Southern Justice vs the DOA and Al Snow vs Sergeant Slaughter. Disco doesn't do much dancing here neither, and I'm not happy about it. Let's see if he has better luck than Alex Wright though, and let's see if he can win the Cruiserweight belt. He's definitely feeling it, he's taken way too long to get ready, and Kidman takes advantage by hitting a dropkick. When Disco kicks out of the follow-up cover, we see Billy's slingshot leg drop, and Billy punishes Disco in the corner before hitting him with a jumping clothesline. Looks like this one's going to be easy work for the former smackhead. A rake in the face gives Disco a chance to do some damage. A side headlock gets followed up with a shoulder block, but Disco's just too tired and he falls down during a drop-down leapfrog spot. You may think it's dumb, but the crowd got a kick out of it. On the outside, Disco gets wiped out with a plancha, and we see that sweet slingshot head scissors from Billy Kidman, a move that only he was doing in WCW at the time. Kidman continues to impress with a chin lock, a move only the greats of the business can really pull off, and a middle rope leg drop finds its mark as Disco continues to struggle through the match. We come back from a break to see Kidman delivering a splash. Shivani says it's a testament to Disco that the match is still going, and Bobby Heenan thinks Kidman might run out of gas before Disco if this keeps up. Lodi shows up with a few signs, including one that says "I'm lost without Raven" and another that says "Kidman, let's go find Raven." And this distraction allows Disco to hit a piledriver, but he's unable to cover Kidman after the move. Looks like the Inferno just blew his best chance. Kidman kicks out after a long delay by Disco, but the Inferno begins firing up and he's maybe in with another shot. He loses the crowd when he starts dancing. This was not the time nor the place. He lands a fish drop, but he misses a second rope diving elbow and Kidman replies with a corner bulldog. Still, Disco's able to come back with a swinging neckbreaker. Again, Disco makes the mistake of dancing and Kidman counters a powerbomb attempt with a facebuster. The Inferno then hits an atomic drop, but Kidman instantly replies with a sit-down spinebuster. Billy then delivers the shooting star press and Kidman retains the Cruiserweight title. You know when people say Disco's never had a good match? Well, you can show them this one right here. It would have been even better without the theatrics and Disco acting tired and whatnot, but it kinda added to the match too, with Disco still trying his best after spending all day trying to make weight. It's a good one for Disco and another good one for Billy Kidman. Kidman's quickly becoming one of WCW's most consistent performers. On Raw, I'm not going to bother going into detail with this DOA versus Southern Justice match at all. It's only around 2 minutes long and there's no clear winner. Honestly, I can tolerate Southern Justice, but I just don't have time for 8-Ball and Skull anymore. It has to be one of the most uninspired, boring gimmicks of this period. WWF butchered the Legion of Doom, but yet they keep these goons together. It ends when Jarrett hits the ring and he takes out Mr. .com, MSN Messenger, ASL, Paul Ellering with a guitar. Nobody cared then, and I'll bet nobody cares now. Cornette announced a Southern Justice and Double J versus New Age Outlaws and X-Pac match for Breakdown right here. It sounds alright. Mr. McMahon says backstage that he's disappointed that someone volunteered to help Austin and he won't be held responsible for what Taker and Kane may do tonight. Short and sweet. And then another Steve Regal Real Man's Man promo plays before our next match. Steve's still in the woods and this time he's having a shave. He's a real man's man because he doesn't use Gillette razors and he's not a member of the Dollar Shave Club. No, Regal prefers to slice his face open with a cutthroat razor. Is it manly or is it inconvenient? I'm not sure. Next we have an interesting matchup, Al Snow versus Sergeant Slaughter in a boot camp match. If Snow wins, he can stay in WWF. Slaughter attacks on the outside and inside the ring Al gets his shirt ripped off so Sarge can whip him with his belt. The Commissioner then uses the belt to knock Al to the mat, but a missed backdrop attempt leads to Snow pulling off a slingshot and Al then grabs the belt. The Commissioner gets a taste of his own medicine, his head watches on. It goes back to the outside where Snow continues to whip Sergeant Slaughter and Al decides to end it with a chair shot to the head. Slaughter's able to duck out of the way and it's Snow who ends up taking a chair shot though. A chair shot that makes Snow smile and I smile too at how weak it was, to be honest. Snow's able to stun Sarge and he pulls off a jumping sidekick while using the chair as a springboard. And then Al Snow pulls off a moonsault from the ringside barrier but he only gets a 2 count. Great stuff here from Mr. Snow. If that's not enough, Al tries another moonsault back in the ring while holding a chair, but unfortunately he misses, and Slaughter locks in the Cobra Clutch. Al frees himself by running Slaughter into the corner, but Sarge is able to lock it in again when Al tries to hit him with head. The move still gets broken up when Al uses head to hit the Commissioner right in his little Cobra, so Slaughter decides to take his boot off and use it as a weapon. The plan backfires and now Al has a choice. He can use the boot on Slaughter or he can use head. Of course everybody wants head, so Snow wipes the Commissioner out and Al's allowed to stay in WWF. Thank God for that. Those stooges Pat Patterson and Jerry Briscoe attack Snow after the match. Who's gonna save our fallen hero?
He's loaded with funky-fly soul. They say, who is it?
Scorpio's here to save the day. The Stooges get out of harm's way before they get their heads taken off with a steel chair. It was a fun little match here on Raw. No complaints about it, all things considered. The Rock sends a message to Vince McMahon. No one dictates to the people's champ. Rock accepted tonight's match because he knows one day he'll be the best WWF champion there ever was. Mankind couldn't beat The Rock on his best day. Shamrock's living proof that anyone can act tough. So Rock's going to go to the people's ring later. He's going to lay the smackdown and he's going to prove to you, Michael Cole, the goof holding the camera, and the idiots currently staring at The Rock that he'll forever be the people's champ. Next we've got Owen Hart versus Val Venus. On Nitro, it's Konnan versus Chavo Guerrero. Chavo says Konnan isn't the only one that's Rasa. Chavo's just as popular as K-Dog and Chavo could even be part of the NWO Wolfpac. Konnan says, nah, that's not going to happen. So Chavo says he'll go over Konnan's head and speak with Kevin Nash. Konnan then clotheslines Chavo after getting pushed and he follows this up with the rolling lariat. Chavo gets out of the ring and he gets comfort from Pepe after taking a dropkick. And back in the ring, he gets hip tossed into the corner. Chavo comes back with an arm drag followed by a basement dropkick. Chavo then performs a leg drop and an elbow drop before riding Pepe around the ring. That looks fun, doesn't it? K-Dog makes Chavo pay with a gorilla press slam and things continue to get worse for Chavo after another clothesline. Chavito gets his act together and he lands a running forearm before applying a deadly chinlock. We come back from a break to see chinlock number 2 applied, but Chavo can't get back into the match after taking the old Road Warrior Hawk ring post bump. On the outside, Konnan uses a steel chair and the referee lets it slide. Chavo also gets tossed into the ring steps too, and back in the ring, the match ends when Konnan modifies his cradle DDT slightly into a cradle suplex. Yeah, let's go with that. Tequila Sunrise, Konnan wins another one via submission, and it's another good match on Monday Nitro. The story progressions haven't been great this week, and we're watching another Nitro with a lot of random matchups. It started off pretty rough, but progressively it's gotten better. On Raw, Dustin Runnels joins the commentary team so he can watch the man who shagged his wife up close and personal. Dustin says he won't retaliate, he's a changed man after all, and Shano can't believe that Runnels is just going to sit there and do nothing about it. As Owen hits a power slam, Cornette wants to know if Dustin tried to reach out to his wife Terry, and he says no, he hasn't. Jim reminds viewers that Dustin and Terry have a child together, and Shane continues to stir it up by saying Dustin's 10 feet away from the man who disrespected his family, as Venus takes an inverted atomic drop followed by a lariat. The commentators continue to poke and prod at Dustin, and when Cornette says Dustin really needs to go about this a different way, he decides to get off his chair and he launches an attack on Venus. Dustin was pushed to his limits by this illustrious tag team of Jim Cornette and Shane McMahon. The plan backfires though. Dustin gets planted on the mat and he gets tied up in the ring ropes as Owen leaves back up the ramp. Venus slaps Dustin around before saying he was beginning to feel sorry for Runnels until he pulled this stunt right here on Raw. So it's time to watch the next Val Venus home movie, There's Something About Terry, and Terry says she won't be getting back with Dustin, saying his Venus is a lot bigger than Mr. Runnels. Venus continues to rub it in and Dustin can do nothing but think about his wife taking the big Valboski. Attitude Era folks, it's the Attitude Era. X-Pac vs D'Lo for the European title on Raw. Eric Bischoff cuts a promo on Nitro. Bischoff says he's responsible for putting all these people in the arena and he built the most successful wrestling company on planet Earth. He's going to Japan tomorrow to build the largest wrestling company in Japan, apparently, and he can do this because he changed what WCW used to be. It's no longer a place ran by the Four Horsemen. Rick does have a contract, but seeing as AA didn't win the arm wrestling contest on Thunder, Ric Flair won't be able to wrestle in WCW. By the way, Buff Bagwell arm wrestled AA, not Eric Bischoff. Flair can't wrestle, Anderson can't wrestle, so the Four Horsemen are pretty much history. Eric gets interrupted by the Horsemen's theme music, and there they are. The Four Horsemen are live on Nitro. Doug Dillinger goes to stop the Horsemen getting in the ring, but then he has second thoughts and he pulls off the biggest face turn in WCW history and he lets the Horsemen pass. Big Double D wants to be a Horseman too. Flair says Bischoff's a liar, the Horsemen aren't dead. Flair puts over the members of the faction before Stanko Malenko. Rick puts over the faction and he says that Bischoff abuses his power. Eric then tries to get Rick to hit him and Flair says he doesn't hit executives who wear tennis shoes, denim jeans and NWO shirts. He prefers to laugh at them. Sick burn, Slick Rick. Flair says his next door neighbour broke the news to his son that his dad was fired. Bischoff says that's right, Flair did get fired. And Rick replies by saying Bischoff just wanted to get rid of the Horsemen because they were too good. Bischoff also accused Rick of being too old, but again, he was just too good. The Nature Boy made it by travelling up and down the highways, and the wrestlers themselves were the ones that built the business. Guys like the Horsemen, Scott Hall, Sting, Luger and Dusty Rhodes, these guys carry the business while Bischoff sits on top of it. The people aren't here because of Bischoff, they're here because they love WCW and they love the wrestlers of WCW. Flair wants Bischoff to remember who introduced him to Hogan in the first place, and Eric says Flair brought Hogan in so he could carry his bags. Bischoff says that Flair hasn't done a fraction of what Hogan's done for the industry, and Flair, of course, doesn't agree, saying Hogan used to go on fourth before intermission so he could beat the crowds while Slick Rick stuck around for main events. At this point, Eric wants Flair's mic cut, and before that happens, Rick promises that the Horsemen are going to show up on Thunder this week, something Eazy-E clearly doesn't want to see happen. The Horsemen then shove the symbol of excellence in Eric's face, and Nitro takes a commercial break. So, what's the game plan here? Are the Horsemen just going to torment Eric Bischoff? Because while that does sound wonderful, I'd like a clear goal to be set out instead. You know, folks say the NW angle should have ended at Starrcade 97, and I disagree with that. The formula was still working after that event, and the ratings proved that. Plus, Starrcade did big numbers for WCW, so they're not going to kill the golden goose after those kind of profits. But at this point, something did have to change in WCW with more and more people tuning into the WWF. The return of the Horsemen could have been the beginning of the end for the New World Order because, like it or not, Flair was seriously over when he came back in the summer of 1998. I'm not sure how they could do it really, but I've always thought this would have been the best time to wrap up the NWO stuff and move on to something else. D'Lo versus X-Pac again. What's this, the third or fourth time I've covered this match? Usually I'd move on to the next part of the show, but let's see what happens. D'Lo gets kicked in the head at the opening bell and X-Pac goes for a backflip arm drag counter, but he ends up taking a power slam from the European champ. After a few strikes in the corner, D'Lo body slams Kid and we see D'Lo's signature leg drop. Pac continues to get dominated after taking a clothesline, but he manages to dodge a corner charge and he pulls off a jump spin kick. He then goes for the standing Bronco Buster, and you know what that means. A torn nutsack for Sean Waltman. D'Lo performs a second rope elbow drop. X-Pac then tries to go toe to toe with the champ, but he gets his face raked, and D'Lo takes some time to talk trash to the audience. D'Lo then goes for a springboard moonsault, but he misses his target. This gives Pac a chance to fire up with a spinning back kick, a jumping clothesline, and a Bronco Buster. D'Lo replies to this offensive onslaught with a sky high, so D'Lo should have this one in the bag. X-Pac manages to kick out of D'Lo's cover, so D'Lo goes up for the lowdown. X-Pac pulls off a brilliant X-Factor counter, and just like that, we've got a new European champion. X-Pac wins via pinfall, and the crowd love the outcome. Pac celebrates on the announce table as DX claim another championship. They currently control the tag belts, the IC belt, and now the European belt. D'Lo was a great champion though, and I'd like to see him win that belt again. Ken Shamrock versus Mankind versus The Rock ends Raw. On Nitro, it's Stevie Ray and the Giant versus Lex Luger and Kevin Nash, plus a brief Hollywood Hogan promo. Scott Hall's been replaced by Stevie Ray on Team Hollywood, but that doesn't stop him coming out and complaining about Dusty Rhodes pulling him from the apron earlier. He says his back sore from carrying Kevin Nash in WCW, and also, there's no alcohol policy in WCW, so Scott doesn't see what the big problem is. Scott then makes his way down to the ring and the action stops. Even the NWO Hollywood guys don't want to see this, but Scott gets in the ring, he throws the referee out and he wants to fight Kevin. Kevin tags in and Scott takes over from Stevie. Hall tries to throw a punch, but he falls on his face, and Kevin just wants to help his old friend. The Giant decides to attack Kevin, and when Luger gets in the ring with a steel chair, the Giant gets out. Scott just doesn't know when to give up. He still wants to fight, so Kevin throws him out of the ring, and the NWO Hollywood guys grab Scott to bring him back up the ramp. This is absolutely abysmal for a WCW main event. Nash grabs a mic and he says, "This is wrong." Nash says he lost his best friend because he doesn't know who Scott is anymore, and Scott shouts back that he's lost everything. Nash says if Scott wants to fight, then they should do it for money at Halloween Havoc. Nash says he'll definitely show up and he just hopes Scott will do the same. So this is how the big battle of the outsiders happens then, eh? All thanks to this storyline. It's a real shame too, because there could have been a big elaborate story behind the Kevin Nash versus Scott Hall match, but no. Run with this shit instead and expect people to be entertained. Following what could be the very worst main event in WCW Nitro history, Hollywood Hogan comes to the ring looking for Warrior. Yeah, it's almost like topping off a tragedy with a sprinkle of comedy. Hogan tells Warrior to show his face. He's been playing hide and seek all night. There's no need to wait for Halloween Havoc, and there he is. Warrior stands on the entranceway for a moment before being joined by his new stoner friend, the Booty Man. We think Booty Man's going to attack Warrior, but the stuff that the Ultimate Warrior grows is just too damn good. So the Disciple has left Hogan to join the One Warrior Nation. The stench of the smoke was just too great, so Ed Leslie now has a new bestest friend. It's the Warrior. The Raw Triple Threat match begins with Mankind taking a seat in the corner while Rock and Shamrock go to work. Eventually Mankind joins in and we get to see the first double team offense from the Rock and Saw connection when Shamrock takes a double clothesline. The alliance is short-lived as Mankind clotheslines Rocky over the top rope, but it's Shamrock who does all the damage on the outside. Kenny Boy keeps the Rock slumped over the commentary table while Mick Foley gets sent into the ring steps. Back in the ring, Foley lays in the right hands and Shamrock takes the corner knee strike. Ken replies with a back suplex, and The Rock picks the perfect time to get in the ring and start laying the smackdown on these two jabronis. Mick takes a beating in the corner, and when Shamrock tries to attack Rock, he ends up going down after a back elbow. We then see the People's Elbow from the People's Champ, and Rock throws Ken out of the ring so we can focus on Mankind. Unfortunately, things don't work out too well for Rock, and Mick performs the double arm DDT. Foley's unable to win via pinfall, so he stays on Rock with an elbow drop. Just as Rock starts fighting back, Shamrock pulls Rock out of the ring and Mankind allows his opponents to beat the hell out of each other. Rock takes a clothesline that puts him out of the match for a moment. Mankind pulls off an uncharacteristic body scissors and he tries to apply the mandible claw on Ken, but he can't keep Shamrock down. Shamrock applies a sleeper hold, The Rock gets in the ring and puts a sleeper on Shamrock, and Mick takes both opponents out by performing a jawbreaker. This has been a good match so far, but it looks like it's going to get ruined when Kane, Undertaker and Vince McMahon show up. The competitors try to ignore this as Mankind puts the mandible claw on Rock, but Shamrock breaks it up and Mick finds himself in an ankle lock. Look at this, Rock taps Shamrock on the back and Ken thinks it's the referee telling him it's over. It's brilliant. Shamrock takes a rock bottom and when Mick Foley breaks up the cover, the Undertaker decides to pull Mick out of the ring and he gets taken out of the match. Shamrock takes a float over DDT, he kicks out at 2, and after firing back for a bit, he too gets pulled out of the ring and the brothers take him out as well. Undertaker and Kane get in the ring and they attack Rock. It looks like we won't get a winner tonight as the Great One takes a double chokeslam. Vince McMahon's really enjoying this, but he doesn't notice Steve Austin approaching from behind and Stone Cold's able to get in a few cheap shots before the brothers realise what's happening. That's how Raw ends. It's a great triple threat match, but we still don't know who the number 1 contender is for next week. Another tough one to score this week. Neither show was as good as last week's offerings, but both shows also had some high points. The Raw main event was good, while Nitro's main event was awful. WCW had better matches during hours 2 and 3, while Raw was just okay during hour 1. But I'm going to go with Raw this week, and that's really based off the strength of its main event. Honestly, I came out of Nitro feeling more annoyed than entertained after the last 10 minutes of the show. Raw has 71 points, Nitro has 64, and we've got 17 ties on the board. In the TV ratings, Raw won with a 4.0, while Nitro scored a 3.9. WWF Break Down in your house is up next. We'll see a true winner when Rock, Shamrock and Mankind do it again, only this time it's in a steel cage. We've got Val Venus taking on Dustin Runnels, and we'll see what happens in the triple threat WWF title match. Join me this Sunday for the video review, and if you want to help the series out and help me out, please subscribe to the channel. Just hit that one little button and you'll help out immensely. Thank you very, very much for watching, guys. I do hope you enjoyed this one, and please take care.
He attacks on the air. Too cold. Scorpio. Too cold. He walks the top rope, and so it was his. If you wanna mix it up, it's you he will diss. Drop kicks, fighting punches in his repertoire. No doubt about it, gonna be a superstar. Too cold. Scorpio. Too cold. He's loaded for fucking fire, so they say who is it? Too cold, Scorpio. So much all fixed. You wonder what's the